We are ending a series called Between Here and There. And Between Here and There is just a, beautiful picture of talking about what I wanted to spend kind of the first part of our year talking about, which is something called the middle, right? It's the middle. It's the middle of whatever it is, fill in the blank in terms of your life. We all get excited about beginnings, right? We all get excited. That's New Year's resolution. Hey, I'm going to do this. It's going to be awesome. Yay. And we all get excited, and people get excited for you. We all love to celebrate accomplishments, right? Some wins and successes. We also actually, we would never say it, but we actually like seeing some people that don't, succeed, because we use their failures or their struggles to kind of as a contrast to where we are, so we can feel better about ourselves. So the end in mind is something we're just naturally drawn to, whether it's success or failure. But very few people like to talk about the middle, right? And this is something I personally struggle with, is just the discipline of understanding what the middle looks like in your life. And again, it could be a project, it could be your marriage, it could be your family, it could be anything that God's called you to. We believe that God has given everyone a purpose and a destiny in their life, and that He wants you to experience the fullness of what it looks like to be a part of it. And so we want to talk about what it looks like, because a lot of us are in the middle and sometimes maybe struggling with some things. And so we've had a verse that we've been reading every week, and I just have us all read it out loud, so I want to burn this verse into your brain. This is in Hebrews. The reason I like Hebrews is the context is that this is a book written to a group of people that really felt like they were in the middle as well in terms of even their faith, as they were at the beginning of the early church. But they felt like God was already supposed to come back, that Jesus was going to be coming back like 10 years ago. And so the author of Hebrews wrote this thing. And so in chapter 12, great context, he's encouraging them. So let's all read this verse out loud together. You guys ready? Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith. I love this particular verse. Again, I loved reading it every week. But having that picture in mind that He's not just the beginning of our faith and He's not just the end of all things, that Jesus Himself is the perfecter of our faith, right? He's the perfecter. He's the one that gives us, indwells us with the power, empowers us to have that endurance, to run that race we've been called to. And for all of us, the perfecter of our faith is that He's in the middle with us. So every moment by moment, step by step, struggle by struggle, He is with you, and He's with us in the middle. And so that's been a great verse as we kind of focused on Nehemiah's story. So Nehemiah is an Old Testament story. We've been focusing on his life, his memoir, if you will. That's what the Nehemiah is called, his book, the memoir of his life. And we've been using him as sort of like the example of several of the things of what it looks like to run with endurance, to do this, to keep our eyes fixed on Christ. What does it look like? So a couple weeks ago, we started, just to give you a brief recap, we started with this idea that what is your God-given burden, right? That this all starts, oftentimes many things start with this God-given burden. It's personal to us. It's something that moves us emotionally. It's God's size, which means oftentimes it's not something we can accomplish on our own. And there's a sense of responsibility. There's a sense of weight that comes with a God-given burden in your life. And so we talked the first week of what is your God-given burden? Do you know what it is? I've talked to folks over the last couple of weeks that are still struggling to find out what that is. And maybe they felt like they had one at one time, but they felt like it changed. And now they're just trying to pray to God. That's fine. That's the purpose of the series. If you don't know that God-given burden, if you're not in tune with that, definitely make that your first step. And then last week, we specifically talked about, well, how do we keep our eyes fixed on Christ? And we talked about this idea of committing and engaging in a plan, right? We all have to have a plan that we're working. You have a plan, whether you're a planner or not, you have a plan that you're working, right? And you just may not know what the plan is, right? You may not have any intention behind it. But it requires engagement. It requires commitment. It requires opportunity to revise along the way, because not everything follows the plan that we expect to have. An opportunity to reevaluate our plan, that we actually are connected to God's plan. And then we ended with this phrase. This is the big phrase, that everyone really is a part of His plan. But do you have a plan to be a part of it? Meaning that God's going to accomplish what God's going to accomplish. It has nothing to do with you accomplishing something for God in your own strength, in your own power, in your own awesomeness. It has nothing to do with that. God's got a plan. God's going to work out His plan. God's going to see all of it come to fruition. The difference is as to whether you're going to have a plan to be an active part of it and then experience all that He wants you to experience in it. Does that make sense? So He's going to accomplish it anyway. It doesn't have anything to do with what you are going to accomplish for Him. It has to do with everybody's going to be a part of that plan, but you have to have a plan to engage, to commit, to reevaluate, to make sure your eyes are fixed on Him so you can be a part of the plan that He has for you. And then today we're going to focus a lot on just those words, to run with endurance, the race that's marked out for us, right? To run with endurance. What does that mean? It means to never give up, right? No matter the circumstances, no matter what kind of comes your way, to run with endurance the race that he's given to you. You can all read that individually and know that there's something he has planned for you, and yet you in your own life, everybody's life in here is different. You're going to have circumstances, problems, issues, stuff come up, and you're going to have stuff that wants to kind of slow you down and take you off course, take you out of your race. I said this a while back, for a phrase that I heard from another pastor. I can't even remember where I heard it, but in terms of the Christian life is not easy, right? It's not easy. The reality is that we're running a race, right? We're running a race, but we're being stalked by an enemy, and we're being sabotaged from our flesh, right? So we're in a race, but we're being stalked by an enemy and sabotaged from within. And that's the Christian life in a nutshell. And so the reality is our race that's marked out for us is only going to come from the endurance that we need from our eyes fixed on Christ. So today, as we again look at Nehemiah, as our example, if you don't read Nehemiah, the whole book, if you haven't read it yet, go back and at least read the first 6 chapters. Okay, the first 6 chapters are so full. I remember I sent Matt's thing out in the post. He was reading it the first week, and he sent me a text. He said, "Man, Nehemiah started off so promising," and then chapter 7 happened. Right, so it's like I understand. We did an overview of it last week. You got to kind of take it all in. But if you don't have an opportunity, at least read the first 6 chapters. Because number one, the first part of it, in terms of what he did and how he started coming to build the wall, that was the burden that God gave him to help rebuild the wall around Jerusalem. But for Nehemiah, not only does it show things not going all that he kind of planned for it to go, but you see in chapter 6, that's where we're going to be focused all day today. You see in chapter 6 the testimony of a man who is running a race with endurance. What endurance really looks like when stuff starts to come from out of nowhere, when stuff starts to come to try to take him off course. And so we're going to pull out some ideas from Nehemiah 6 in terms of what does it look like for us to run our race with endurance, especially when things are not going the way necessarily we planned or would prefer them to go. So let's pull up in Nehemiah 6:1. These 3 guys, I made a comment a couple weeks ago just to tell you who they are. They're the warlords of the area, okay? They're the frenemies to the Jewish people. Everything's fine as long as you do what we want you to do. They're kind of the organized crime, the mafia leaders, if you will, of that time. Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem. And they find out, and the rest of the enemy, so there's more, but these big guys and the rest of the enemies find out that I'd finished rebuilding the wall, right? And this is not fully rebuilt, but he's saying, look, the majority of it was done. There's no gaps remaining, though we had not yet set up the doors and the gates, right? And it says, so Sanballat and Geshem sent a message asking me to meet with them at one of the villages in the plain of Ono. Now, when someone says, let's meet anywhere that's called Ono, don't go, right? That's a sign right there. I just think that's a good call. So, of course, this is Nehemiah. In terms of his memoirs reflecting, I realized they were plotting to harm me. So I sent messengers to them saying, I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop? Well, I leave it to come down to you. Now, I love this particular beginning of this passage because it's just packed. I love the particular start of his reply, right, which is, I'm doing a great work, and I cannot come down. This phrase just challenges me. All right? It just challenges me because when I read this phrase, it makes me just wonder, is there anything that I feel like I'm doing with that kind of focus and conviction? Right? Is there anything in my life that I feel like I'm doing in terms of I'm doing a great work and I cannot come down? I feel the freedom to say no in this circumstance because I feel like I'm so locked in as to what I've been called to do and what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm challenged by that. Do you guys ever feel like you have that in your life? So locked in that you know what that great work is for you. That you feel free that you can say no. And it's not just because you're a jerk. Because jerks don't have a problem saying no, right? You can say no and be a jerk. But the fact that you can, with freedom, be like, look, why should the work stop? This is something that I can say no to. Look, this is amazing what we're doing. You'll see kind of the results of this a little bit later on in the chapter. But he says, no, I'm not coming down. And in this moment, you really kind of see some elements come out as to what it looks like for Nehemiah to really run this race with endurance, to run this course, to press through when stuff starts to kind of come at him. And the first one you see is this. He begins to recognize distractions, right? Recognizing distractions. Now let me just put everybody at ease real quick. Let me just tell you what distractions aren't. Okay, what are not distractions? Your work is not a distraction. Let me just go ahead and throw that out there. Okay, your work is not. Okay, Proverbs says if you don't work, you don't eat. And I really believe that's true, okay? Your work is not a distraction. Now the drama at work might be a distraction, right? The boss at work might be a distraction. The issues that you are causing and the people are causing might be a distraction, but your work itself is not a distraction. Same thing goes for parents. Your children are not distractions, right? They're not. I know you think they are. They're not. Now, the 18 extracurricular activities you have for your children might be a distraction, right? Okay, the anxiety you put on yourself to be the perfect parent might be a distraction. But your children are not a distraction. Your children are a gift from God. Your children were given to you to steward and to raise for the period of time that you have them. They're not distractions. When we say distractions, we're talking about what are the things that really do come at you that are there to take your eyes off of Jesus, take your eyes off of the plans and purpose and passion He's placed in your heart, and to put them basically to put them back on you and your own self-interest. That's what a distraction really is. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about a distraction in your life that would cause the work to stop in order for you to go do blank, blank, blank. All right? That's the kind of distractions that we're talking about. And he goes, hey, he got to recognize, he realized, he said, this was going to be a distraction. And I really do believe that sometimes we spend a lot of time in the middle, sometimes longer than we need to be there because of distractions, because we're caught up and stuck in distractions. Now, you may not know this, but one of the reasons that we don't recognize distractions easily is because we kind of live distracted lives. We kind of bounce back and forth all the time. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but you know focus is actually a spiritual discipline. That focus itself is actually a spiritual discipline. Just like fasting and praying and worship, and there's so much call in Scripture for us to focus our eyes, to set our minds on something, to have clear and clarity in terms of focus in our life. So I'll just read a few of these that I love. Proverbs 4:25, you can look these up later, but look straight ahead, fix your eyes on what lies before you. Philippians 4:8 says, fix your thoughts on what is true, honorable, right, pure, lovely, and admirable. Think on these things and excellent things worthy of praise. Colossians 3:2 says, set your minds on the things of heaven and not on the things of earth. And Philippians 3:13 goes on to say, I've not achieved any of this, but I do focus on this one thing. I want to forget the past and look forward to what lies ahead. Right? Oh, come on. You guys can give me something like that. Look how excited they are. This is the only group that gets it, right? Let me just throw this out, okay? It is so much easier to spot distractions that are going to take your eyes off of Jesus if you actually have a spiritual discipline with your eyes fixed on Jesus. Okay? If you actually begin to understand that being focused is an actual discipline that I need to nourish and stretch and exercise and encourage. Same with reading your Bible and prayer and everything else that you would automatically assume is a spiritual discipline. But focus itself is a spiritual discipline. And it allows you to recognize quickly when something wants to take your eyes off of serving others, loving God with all your heart, loving others as yourself. When you understand that that's coming at you, you recognize quickly, no, that's just going to put the focus back on me. That's going to just put the focus back on something that's very self-serving. I can recognize pretty quickly, because I'm focused, that this is a distraction coming my way. And maybe we're good. Maybe we're okay. Maybe we can recognize sort of those random, sort of up out of nowhere distractions in our life. But then the second one kind of goes along with it. And this is later on when he says, hey, Geshem and Shema, they kind of send these messages to him. And then it goes on in this verse. I think it's verse 5. No, it's verse 4. Where's my verse? Verse 4. There we go. Verse 4. It says 4 times they sent the same message, right? The same message. And each time I gave the same reply. 4 times. Which means it wasn't just like, hey, can we do lunch? And it's like, no, I'm doing a great work. Can't come down. Cool. No lunch? Right. How about breakfast? Right? How about tea? Right? How about this? No, you're gluten-free? How about this over here? Right? Planes of oh no are a problem? Okay, we'll meet somewhere else. 4 different times they send this message to him, and yet 4 different times Nehemiah responds the same way. Why is this important that's in the text? Because sometimes for you and I, we might recognize distractions when they first come up. We might recognize those random things, but we have a little bit of a hard time with persistent distractions, right? We have a hard time discerning There we go. Discerning persistent distractions. Discerning meaning understanding that oftentimes when something comes at you, and I'll say a couple things just to see if you can agree with me. We're all on the same page. Just because something comes at you more than once does not mean that it's important. Right? You guys agree with me? Yeah? Just because something comes to you more than, listen, just because somebody tells you that something's urgent doesn't mean it's urgent. Right? Okay? Just because it doesn't mean that it's urgent. This is where we get to this thing where you have to discern, you have to be able to discern what is it that you feel like the Spirit is asking you to consider versus just what other people are placing on you as urgent, as urgent and as important and all these things. This for me, I believe, is one of the things that we struggle with because we figure if it comes at us multiple times, well, God must be saying something. We have to second guess it because we're not really sure. Well, why would I have that thought? Why would I consider to have that thing? And let me just give you an example. My son, I have a 12-year-old girl and a 10-year-old boy and a almost 2-year-old little girl. But my son, okay, I just want you to understand, he's got skill, okay? He can ask the same thing to me 29 different ways, right? Anybody else got a kid like that at all, right? I only pray he's that talented at something when it matters, like later in life, right? Maybe a lawyer, I have no idea. But he can ask for the same thing so many different ways to make me, to really believe that I'm going to think one way he's going to ask, and I'm actually going to think it's different, right? Or he's got to place urgency on it, or something along those lines got to come. So I'm saying it from the standpoint of sometimes multiple things come our way, and we begin to give it some time of day because we begin to second guess what God already told us. Just because it keeps coming and coming and coming and coming. But just because something comes at you, repetitively and multiple times does not mean that it's important. Does not mean that it's urgent. Does not mean that it's from God. Right, you have to be able to recognize, number one, you got to recognize what a distraction is. And when it's a distraction, but it comes multiple times, you have to have a peace to know that I can still send the same reply multiple times as well. Right? I can send that reply multiple times as well because it hasn't really changed anything. Now, I know it's hard. And I'll just put this up here. Help with discerning. I'm going to give you 2 phrases. And I know it's more complicated than this. It can be, but just watch this. God brings peace with a persistent tension, right? But anxiety results from false urgency, right? So God brings peace, and this is what I mean by that. When you feel like the Holy Spirit is bringing things to you, doors are closing, things are happening, and you are on the path, your eyes are fixed on Him, and all of a sudden you begin to feel like there is something to question, that there is a question being brought to you. There is something that you need to consider, as we talked about last week, to reevaluate or revise in the plan that you have. There's something there that God's leading you to. I'm telling you, when He does that, this is just my 40 years of experience in conversation and with myself. When He does that, and it's the Spirit, it will come with peace. It will come with a foundation that you're not questioning God, you're not questioning your relationship, you're not questioning anything. You just feel like, okay, God might be bringing something for me to consider. But if it's anxiety, if the result at first and at the end is anything to do with an anxious heart, then it is coming from false urgency and it is not from God. Right? It's coming, it's drawing about in you a spirit of fear, which He told us not to have, right? So that's why I'm saying, now again, it can be more complicated than that, but just see that in terms of we have to discern. We have to discern when those multiple things come, when those multiple, challenges come, that it's not always because God's trying to get your attention. Doesn't always mean it's important, doesn't always mean it's urgent. You have to be able to discern, where's this really coming from? Let's keep going. Verse 5. It says the 5th time, okay, so 4 times they have this. The 5th time it says, Sanballat's servants came with an open letter, basically just to be like a scroll or something that hadn't been sealed yet. It hadn't been sealed to send. It was an open letter, and then given to Nehemiah, and here's what it said. So Nehemiah is telling you what it said. There's a rumor. Oh, I'm sorry. I was only halfway through. Go back. There's a rumor among the surrounding nations, and Geshem tells me it's true. Well, if Geshem says it's true. Okay, hold on. Keep going. That you and the Jews are planning to rebel. And that's why you're building the wall. According to his reports, you plan to be their king. Right? Not only that, he also reports that you have appointed prophets in Jerusalem to proclaim about you. Look, there is a king in Judah. you can be very sure that this report, right, this report will get back to the king. So I suggest that you come and talk it over with me. I replied, this is Nehemiah's reply, there is no truth in any part of your story. You're making up the whole thing. I love the fact that it started off as a rumor, but it ended the letter with, this is a factual report. And then Nehemiah goes, hey, there is nothing, I love the fact he uses the word, there is nothing true about your story, right? You're making up the whole thing. And he goes on. This is, again, in reflection. They were just trying to intimidate us, imagining that they could discourage us and stop the work. So I continued the work with, read the last three words with me, even greater determination. It's like backfired, right? Totally backfired. Now this goes into our third thing in terms of, and this, I'm going to talk about this word a little bit, but we have to learn to oppose intimidation, right? Those lies, those threats, those rumors, those things that twisted truth. We have to learn to oppose them, to stand firm and oppose what is not true. We have to learn that. This is part of running with endurance. Now, we see this, again, in Nehemiah's response. We see this kind of more clearly because he's telling us this from he's talking about this afterwards. He's telling us what was said and how it kind of happened and then what his response was. But we experience, this is you and me, we experience a great deal of stalling in our race. We experience sometimes coming completely off course because we get really, really nervous around the pressure that comes from the outside, from rumors, twisted truth, lies, threats, intimidation. Because it just influences. We care about the way people feel. We care that someone might assume it's true, right? We cannot let, this is my last statement. Don't allow rumors, lies, and threats to take you out of the race. Don't allow it. When you allow rumors and threats, intimidation, and pressure that comes from the outside to alter what you're doing, even though it's not true, but just because it's perceived to be true, you give them power to take you out. You've given them power to take you out. Versus Nehemiah goes, yeah, it's fantastic. What a well-written story. It's not true. It's not true. And he goes on to say, look at how the way they tried to discourage us. They thought they could discourage us with this. And he continues the work with even greater determination. Now, intimidation is tough because many times you don't feel like you're being intimidated, but the truth is, intimidation usually comes from people we know. And it's just pressure. Just think of the word pressure. It's just pressure to lean in on you to get you a little off of your course. Pressure to adjust, pressure to move, pressure to kind of maybe shift back or make a different change. It's just pressure. Intimidation is like peer pressure. You guys have all heard that for your kids, right? Peer pressure, that's intimidation. You have to learn to oppose that when you see it, when you discern those distractions. You recognize and discern it, and then you can oppose those intimidating factors. And the hard part is it comes from everywhere, right? Kids are master intimidators. Right? Manipulators, intimidators. Why? Because it has nothing to do with you. Intimidation has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you or the great work you're doing. It has everything to do with the other person. It has everything to do with their own self-interest. Right? The pressure that comes, the intimidation that comes has nothing to do with you. But it's still going to come at you, right? Has everything to do with them. And kids, listen, kids don't care if you're the parent and you know what's best, and they don't care about your great work or anything else. They want a cookie now, right? That's all they know. And they will twist truth, and they will use rumors, and they will do all that they can to pressure and intimidate you. Now, it gets a little harder because sometimes spouses do this to each other. And they may not even know they're actively doing it, but they're playing emotional games, they're twisting truth, they're allowing the perceived truth to be the thing that dictates what they cause you and ask you to do. And they cause pressure and start to intimidate you. Your friends will do it. And again, your friends may do it, and it has nothing to do with the great work you're doing. It has nothing to do with your commitment to Christ. It has nothing to do with who you are. All they know is that you've changed. All they know is you're not nearly as on board with some of the same conversation that we used to be on board with together. All they know is that you're not there for their needs as well as you used to be. And so they'll start to intimidate and put pressure on you so that you go back to the way you were. And you have to learn to oppose what is not true. And the reality is, this is true just for everybody. You don't just have an enemy. You don't just have an enemy of your soul, okay? You have enemies. Like people, there might be people in your life that don't like you. They don't like you. They don't want you to succeed. Matter of fact, the last thing they want to do is do anything to help you accomplish the great work in your life. They don't like you for whatever reason. You have to learn in those times when pressure comes and intimidation comes and those rumors and things that just are not true, even the perceived truth that is still not true, you have to learn to oppose the intimidation that's going to come your way, that's going to take you off course and take your eyes off Jesus. Now, here's the last piece in terms of just going with Nehemiah. Later I went to visit Shemaiah, the son of Delia, and the grandson of Metatable. I don't know how to say. I want to buy another different vowel there. I don't really know. Shemaiah is the one we're concerned about, okay? So let's just go back. When later I went to visit Shemaiah, who was confined to his home. And he said this to Nehemiah. Let us meet together inside the temple of God and bolt the door shut. Your enemies are coming to kill you tonight. But I replied, this is Nehemiah replying, should someone in my position run from danger? Should someone in my position enter the temple to save his own life? No, I won't do it. And it goes on, again, his reflection. I realized that God had not spoken to him, but that he had uttered this prophecy against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. They were hoping to intimidate me and make me sin. And then they would be able to accuse and discredit me. Now, I would love to spend more time on this. I just don't have the time. But this is the one that jacks me off the most, okay? It just hacks me off. Let me tell you what it is. You have to discern. You have to be able to recognize the distractions, discern those persistent distractions, and oppose this. But here's the fourth piece that we see in Nehemiah's story. You have to reject fear. You have to reject fear disguised as concern. Okay? This is the way I like to say it. This is just my own personal words. But fear, right? Fear is, go to the next slide. Fear is a false prophet. Fear is a false prophet, but concern is its evil twin. You guys get that? Here's what fear will do. Fear will tell you the thing that could happen, the thing that's the worst possible end is going to happen. That's why it's a false prophet, right? That's what fear is. It's like the worst possible thing you can think, that is a fact and it will happen. That's where fear lies. Concern is worse. Why? Because we give concern the time of day. Because if fear comes, we're like, oh, wow, it's so blatant in terms of fear. But when concern comes, we feel like it's genuine. Oh, I'm really just worried about you. Right? I'm really just concerned. You can't possibly keep this up. How in the world? Don't you need more rest? You need to look after you. You need to be more concerned about this. I'm worried that you are going to run out. I'm worried that you are going to burn out. I'm worried that I'm concerned for you. And we take it as genuine, and it is nothing but fear. It's worse than the fear we can recognize, like the scripture says, the Lord is, don't fear, the Lord is with you. There's so much in scripture about rejecting fear, but the problem is when it comes in the voice of concern, we're like, oh, maybe I should listen. Maybe I should consider it. Maybe I am, looking at something poorly. Concern is the evil twin here. Concern is the problem. And especially when it comes, here's the deal, especially when it comes from Christian brothers and sisters and parents, right, in your life, people that you respect and people that you love and people that really you think, yes, have the best interest, your best interests at heart. But the reality is, even as Nehemiah sees it, Nehemiah so quickly says, look, man-centered fear, God never uses man-centered fear to motivate me, right? He does not use man-centered fear. And I know the rules. I can't go in the temple and lock the doors to save my own life. Like he knew the rules. He knew it was a sin. It's like, where in the world? And I love that when he says, look, I realized that this was not from God. He was so quick to recognize that, okay, you're not only speaking a prophecy, a false prophecy of fear on me, but it's disguised in concern. And he's able to recognize it immediately. I have to reject that. I have to reject that fear that's disguised as concern. That did not come from God. You want to know why I hate this so much? Do you want to know how many marriages have ended because of parents and Christians' friends who have vomited fear over people that they loved? Oh, you need to look out for you. You need to be careful. You need to get out of there. You need to, know what else is going to take care of you? You need to look after you. I'm just worried about you. I'm so worried about you. And they just throw that fear out on you. Get your eyes off Christ. Put your eyes on you. That's why this is such a problem. When we allow concern, disguised, it's fear, right? We allow concern to take our eyes off Jesus. Nehemiah was quick to see it and quick to reject it. That's how he ran with endurance. And here's this big part, right? So on October 2nd, the wall was finished. This is the whole thing, right? The whole shebang. The wall is finished just 52 days after we had begun, okay? Listen, it's between 2.5, some say between 2.5 and a little under 3 miles long, right? The wall is an average of 8 feet thick, okay? It's an average of 40 feet high. It has 30 plus watchtowers all over with 9 gates and, bolts and gates and so forth and so on. 52 days, less than 2 months since it began. They did it all, right? We need Nehemiah working on the interstate. That's all I know, right? Like everybody who studies this, right? Everybody who studies this recognizes that it is an impossible feat that they accomplished. So here's Nehemiah just sharing this results. And then he goes on, when our enemies and the surrounding nations heard about it, they were frightened and humiliated. They realized the work had been done with the help of God. I mean, how else could they recognize it, right? 52 days. Something that had never been done before was accomplished. And they were frightened and humiliated. Everybody who heard about it was frightened and humiliated. And they knew it. They knew that it was because of God. Let's read the verse again together. This is Hebrews. Let's go back and read this one more time. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith. Right? What does that look like to run with endurance, right? Never give up. No matter what comes our way, we have to be able to recognize. And then what it does is it makes me think of this story. And I'll end with this story. Every time I read that verse in Hebrews, I can't help but think of Peter's experience with Jesus. I can't help but think about the fact that, they're out on the list, as Matt's paraphrased. They're out on the water. It's a little cloudy, stormy, foggy kind of thing. They see somebody walking on the water. They think it's a ghost, so they freak out. Normal. Yes, normal, right? Jesus says, don't freak out. And Peter says, Lord, if it's you, call me to come out there. Tell me to come on out. And Jesus said, yeah, right? I mean, that's my preference, right? He says, come on. And Peter takes a step out of the boat and does something that no other man had done before and would not do again. He steps out of the boat and he begins to walk on the water to Jesus. But what happens? Well, the distractions start to come. The storm, the fog, the wind, the waves, the persistent crashing of wave after wave after wave after wave all around him. And then the pressure and the whispers of fear telling him, you're not going to make this. There's no way you should be out here. There's no way you should be doing this. There's no way you're going to get out alive. You can't do this, Peter. And when all of that comes towards him, what does he do? He takes his eyes off of Jesus and he begins to sink. And then Jesus, of course, reaches out and gets him. And the only thing left is, Peter, where's your faith? Right? Where is it? It was there when you had your eyes fixed on me. It was there when you took a step out of the boat to do something that no one else, probably everybody else in the boat is going, that is the dumbest thing that I could have possibly. Why would Peter ever ask something like that, right? He takes a step out to do something that no one else has done before and that would not be done. and experiences what God had planned for Peter. But he took his eyes off Jesus. And that is when he began to sink. That is when everything became true, that he was allowing to distract him and take his eyes off of God. And I think about that, and I think about our lives, just our lives. Look, I don't know what God's called you to. I don't know what your great work is. I don't know what you're in the middle of right now. I do know that too many of us struggle in the middle because we are allowing things to constantly take our eyes off of Jesus. We don't remember well the burden we were given. We've abandoned a plan, something intentional to commit and engage to do, to take steps, to keep moving forward. And we've lost the endurance because we no longer recognize distractions. We allow the intimidation and pressure to come. We think because it's come at us several times that it's important and urgent. And it second guesses what God's told us to do. And we allow fear disguised as concern to cause us to be, I know it sounds weird, but it causes us to be extraordinarily self-focused. Guys, if we want to get between here and there, if we want to see there, and not just get there, because destination is not the end, it's the experiences that God wants to give you while he's walking with you, right? It's whatever it is he wants you to experience in the journey of your spiritual life. All I can say is that, I don't know you, but when I pray of these things and I read that scripture and I think about Peter's story, I want to get to a place that I'm so fixed, so focused, so willing to be able to say, I am doing a great work. I'm sorry I can't come down. I am so fixed on what God's called me to do. That when there's a step to be taken that should not ever be, like no one's ever done it before, that my eyes would be so fixed on him. So fixed on him and willing to experience what he's wanting me in that moment to experience, that I would be able to do it. And that when the distractions come, right, when the fear comes, when the concern comes, that just like Peter, I would learn a lesson beforehand and be able to keep my eyes on Christ. So again, I don't know where you are, but as I've said every single week, no matter where you find yourself in this journey, allowing the story and example of Nehemiah to encourage you, take a step out, take a step towards him. He will meet you there. Let's pray together. Father God, I'm so thankful the way your word challenges us. Even Nehemiah's memoirs, God, for you to flow through him and your spirit to allow him to not just live this life that he experienced with you, but to be able to capture it for us. To be able to share his life and his story and his experiences and all the things that he's learned. So that we, thousands of years later, can learn what does it look like to have endurance and keep our eyes fixed on you. To accomplish feats that should not be accomplished. The great work that you've called everyone in here to. God, that we would take those steps and keep moving forward. God, for those listening today and those watching later online, God, I pray that every person that's listening, that's hearing you, that's hearing your word, that your Holy Spirit has already been doing a work. Your Holy Spirit's already been breathing into everyone here a God-given burden, the reminder of what you've called them to, maybe a step towards the plan so they can have a plan in the part of your plan of their life. And that God, today, if they have spent too much time off course, off the race that is marked for them because of distraction and fear and intimidation and pressure, and urgency that does not come from you. God, I pray that today they would just take a step back. They would take a step back and that you, as you have promised us, you would meet them there. We thank you for that, Jesus. We thank you in advance for the stories and lives that you're going to continue to change with your absolute hope because of Nehemiah's story, because of Nehemiah's message, and because of his example of what it looked like to run with endurance the race that you have set before us. We pray all this in your name, Jesus. Amen.